by 5 p.m. this Friday, and the meals will be delivered next week, and you'll get a call back to tell you when what day yours is coming and that kind of stuff. So that's for the senior citizens and Council on Aging. More details are available on their website. Dog licenses,
Taylor,
get your dog licenses
that
at the town clerk's
and bring it
office.
over here and wrap them properly, please.
And we have an election next Monday at the town offices with the same plan. If you look on the back of your town report, on page 118, it gives the plan of how you go in and out, just as we did for the elections last year. That helps to keep down the amount of contact from the people coming and going and makes it a little safer for everybody.
Is that one doing anything?
On the back of the town report, there's a listing of our town meeting. Of course, today is right now. We also have a session at 6:30 p.m. on Monday, right back here, and we'll be doing the last few articles of the warrant on that occasion. And then we also have a possible one for Tuesday, which unfortunately is also May 27th according to this, but it's really May 28th.
No, it's not. 18.
18, I'm sorry. Oh my. The annual town meeting is May 15th, Monday is May 17th, and Tuesday is May 18th. But the election is the 24th. Okay, we just got a couple of numbers there to take care of. And you can also apply for absentee ballots if you'd rather do it that way. And those requests go to the town clerk. You can do it. You can send an email and get an application, or you can pick up an application in the town offices, which are now open. One can go in the building now. You'll be behind shields and things, but you can go in the building now. And so we're getting some things a little bit more back to normal. I'm Barry Yeager. You're the moderator, town moderator. On the platform with me is Eloise Sauls, the town clerk. We have the esteemed members of the Finance Committee on this side, and we have the Select Board and Town Administrator on this side. And we'll try to go through things appropriately. And I, again, always ask people to identify themselves when they speak. The people up here, at least the first time that you speak, please do that. And I always used to announce them by name, but now my brain doesn't work as well, and I get in the middle and forget one of them. So I won't embarrass them or me that way. But and if members of the community want to speak at various times during the meeting, when you come up to speak, please identify yourself with your name and your address in Berlin. That helps everybody know what's going on. Our big new wrinkle for this meeting is electronic voting. We were able, through the use of COVID funds that were available to the town, we were able to purchase the equipment for electronic voting. In your packet, you have one of these little devices that we will be using for some of our votes, just some of the votes, this today, and also next Monday. It's a pretty simple thing to use. When we call for a vote, and I will call that we're going to have an electronic vote, and then I will announce when the time to vote starts. We will take about 20 seconds, 15 or 20 seconds. I'll tell you what the time is, how long you got to vote. You grab these, and you simply press the button for the yes or the no that you prefer for that particular issue that's at hand. This all is collected by that little tiny antenna up here and comes into the computers, and nobody will see the results of who voted how, but we will have totals that come out of it. And there will also, at the end of the voting 15 to 20 seconds, then those totals will come up, and it will tell us whether the motion passed or not, and it will give us the exact numbers. This is really great because it allows us, when we have a division of opinion, to get an accurate vote quickly and easily, and we don't have to have the extremely long times of either counting hands or even more so doing a paper ballot. Gives us just as accurate a count and much, much faster. The green sheet that you have in here gives a little bit more explanation about it.
I got it.
And you can read that as
All right, so I'm going to switch.
as you proceed with it. And on the back of the little green sheet is a rule for this meeting. This rule allows us, if we
So
adopt
you'll be
it,
the live camera.
to use the
So
electronic voting in place
when
of
someone goes to the
hand
microphone
votes
to talk,
and
you get that shot.
paper ballots.
That other one's going to
So
just be stuck on Barry.
If we approve this, we will be able to do that, and
Although I don't know if you're going to
we'll
be
see
able
how
to get
you
a
like
shot
it
of.
today, and then we'll know where we are in the
I guess
future.
you'll just have to shoot through.
If everybody
Just
is
get your best shot you
reasonably happy and we
We're gonna go to that
are
microphone
really
right
pleased,
there,
we
right?
can
Yeah.
make a permanent rule
It's just
in
if the
town
finance
bylaws
committee
allowing
talks or the
electronic
select
voting
board
under
talks.
appropriate
Okay.
conditions.
I might
So
be
at
able
this
to reach
time,
over.
we'll take our first electronic
that's a little
vote. And that electronic vote is going to be on adopting this rule. Can I have a motion to adopt this rule? Do I have a second? Motion made and seconded to adopt the rule on the paper. For this meeting, voting by electronic means will replace counted standing votes or votes by show of hands. Electronic votes will also be used in place of secret paper ballot votes. The moderator shall have discretion to use electronic voting when he deems it desirable to have a complete, accurate vote count. That will allow us to use it when we do 2/3 votes and those things, so we'll, instead of doing seat of the pants things, we'll be able to actually have clear numbers to put in the record of the meeting. So, we have the motion made and seconded to approve this rule. I'm going to start the voting, and we'll have 20 seconds for you to push your button. It will show in the little window with an OK to indicate that your vote has been tallied. If you decide that you made a mistake and you wish you'd voted the other way, while the 20 seconds is still going, you can switch to another one and you'll get another OK. So I will open the voting now. We start 20 seconds.
Does that pick up that?
Yeah, that's what we're sending out over the live stream.
It's on these two screens that'll come up.
You gotta talk into the microphone.
There's no countdown clock, Barry. I can close it whenever you want. Just tell me when to close it, and I'll close it.
That's all we got, 63.
So we have 62 yes, 1 no, a total of 63 votes cast. The motion passes. I'm glad somebody voted no. It proves that no works. Okay. I will ask the town clerk to read the call for the meeting and the constable's return.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Worcester SF, to the Constable of the Town of Berlin, and the County of Worcester. Greetings, in the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of said town, qualified to vote in elections and in town affairs, to meet at the Berlin Memorial School, 34 South Street, in said Berlin, on Saturday, the 15th day of May 2021, next at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, then and there, to act on the following articles or in relation thereto. And you are directed to serve this warrant by posting up attested copies thereof as per vote of the town in said town 7 days at least before the time of holding said meeting. Hereof fail not and make due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town Office, Clerk. A true copy attest, Kevin Pond, Constable. Worcester, SS. Pursuant to the within warrant, I have notified and warned the inhabitants of the town of Berlin by posting up attest copies thereof at the town hall, the town offices, and the post office at least 7 days before the time of holding said meeting as within directive. Kevin Pond, Constable, date April 20, 2021.
Thank you, and now we'll proceed to the articles. The first section of the warrant, Articles 1 through 7, are articles that have to do with fiscal year 2021. That's the one we're in now. And we separate those because most of the meeting has to do with the next fiscal year that starts in July 1st. So the first few articles have to do with this or other things in the past. Article 1, we had a sunset clause extension. I will not read the article. I'll let the maker of the motion read the full motion. Use the microphone right there. Christine Keefe of the Select Board. Hold it close.
Can you hear me?
You gotta turn it on. There's a switch.
There you go.
All right. Can you hear me now? All right. I move that the town amend the vote originally taken under Article 20 of the 2019 annual town meeting and extended under Article 6 of the 2020 annual town meeting and amend the vote taken under Article 18, Item 5 of the 2020 annual town meeting by extending until June 30th, 2022, the date by which money must be expended for the purposes of purchasing and equipping a new fire and EMS department pumper tanker truck, repairing and repaving the town office and public safety parking lot.
You'll man this camera. And
Motion is made and seconded. It is as you see it on the motion sheet that you were given in your packet. So I shan't read it again. Is there anything to be said on this motion?
no, just set it right to the side.
Does the Finance Committee have a
Right,
recommendation
so
on
you're
this?
on a short leash here with the HDMI. But if any of these people talk, you get them, okay?
Finance Committee approves this action. Is there anyone else that wants to speak to it? Same work to be done, just giving us a little more time to finish it. In that case, I'll ask you to vote. We'll vote by voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 2, special legislation authorizing the fire chief to serve beyond age 65. Peg Stone of the Select Board.
Before I read the motion, I just want to send a quick shout out to Highway, Police, Cable, and Fire for making today and Monday possible, so thank you. All right, on to the motion. I move that the town authorize the Select Board to petition the General Court for special legislation allowing Paul Kenneth Clark, the Berlin Fire and EMS Chief, notwithstanding the provisions of any general or special law to the contrary, to serve in or be reappointed to such position until May 5th, 2026, the date of his retirement. Nope, lost my place. The date of his retirement or on the date which he is relieved of duties by the Berlin Select Board, whichever occurs first, provided, however, that he is mentally and physically capable of performing the duties of such position. The Select Board may, at the expense of Paul Kenneth Clark, require him to be examined by an impartial physician designated by the Select Board to determine such capability. No further deduction shall be made from the regular compensation of Paul Kenneth Clark under Chapter 32 of the General Laws for any service performed subsequent to reaching age 65 and upon retirement. Paul Kenneth Clark shall receive a superannuation, retirement allowance, equal to that which he would have been entitled to had he retired upon age 65. Provided, however, that the general court may make clerical or editorial changes of form only to the bill, unless the select board approves amendments to the bill prior to enactment by the general court, and authorize the select board to approve such amendments which shall be within the scope of the general public objectives of the petition.
Thank you. That motion is as written on your motion sheet. Would someone like to speak to this? Mr. Hawkins of the Select Board? Oh, excuse me. Thank
Hello, I'm looking under the TV. Sorry about that. Yeah, let me stand up. So basically what we've done is that we've petitioned the legislature, and Meg Kilcoyne, Representative Kilcoyne, and Senator Cronin have been in touch with Margaret just about on a daily basis. If not, Margaret's on a daily basis contact with them, trying to push forth the legislation. Our last update was that the representatives have gone through it and approved it, and it is on its way to the Senate. So with any hope, we can get an approval from the legislature this upcoming week.
And then if no one's talking, just try to check the audience.
If I may, just,
Town Administrator Margaret Notowitz.
thank you. If I may just add that, yes, this was filed under home rule by the governor. If for any reason there is a holdup with the pending legislation already at the legislature, this would provide the board the ability to be able to file separately for this.
In other words, it simply gives additional support to an action they've already taken. Is there any comment from anybody else about this? If not, I will ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no.
Barry, can you
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Roger, sorry.
Article 3, tax collection software conversion. Dennis Firabay, Treasurer.
My apologies to the boards that have heard this multiple times. I move that the town transfer from free cash $32,000 for the purpose of purchasing conversion expenses for a new state-of-the-art tax and financial software package, including acquisition, installation, and equipping and other expenses incidental or related thereto.
Motion is made and seconded. In the same form, you have it on your motion sheet. Dennis, you want to speak to it?
Yeah, we're running a package right now that was written in the early 80s, and we've had it since the late 80s. And the company has indirectly stopped promoting that particular software package that they have. It doesn't do what we need to do because of the CPA. Most software companies, when a state law changes, they do a free change that everyone gets because it's part of how the law works. And in this company, when something happens like that, you get charged individually. And I received a bill for $4,100 just so we could handle the CPA. And we were told that that's because there aren't too many towns left that bill twice a year. So that kind of started things. The software is so old now that when we've upgraded the equipment and software in the town hall, the screen has shrunk from the normal 20 by 12 and a half to a 7-inch by 5.5 inch, or roughly 15% of the screen. It causes immense eye fatigue. It makes 8s look like 6s and 6s looks like 8s. And there is a trick to make it 4 or 5% a little bit bigger, but the way the software is written, the bigger page remains at the bottom when you put a shorter page up, so it gets very confusing, and we just can't make it a little bit larger. It also is software that requires a cap key. It doesn't work if you don't have everything in caps, and I don't think there's too many folks here that have to do that with their software. And It's an arrow-based system, up to get out of the batch and down to get back where you were. So it just doesn't exist anymore out on the market. And the major problem is they have embedded, they're back like in the days of digital and a few other software companies and computer companies where they thought their proprietary codes and stuff shouldn't be released to everybody. And this is one of those companies from back then that feels that's the case. So it creates all sorts of problems. Trying to calculate the interest for the CPA, I have to do it manually, one at a time by every person that's late. That's why we don't like late pays. And it's prone to errors because it's just an Excel spreadsheet that we have to put together every time we do a batch. So the list goes on and on. I tried to cut it to one page just to give you an idea, and this will help immensely. The cost will end up being the same over a 6-year period, and it actually comes in a little bit better because now we don't have to buy custom proprietary forms to print on them. We can print on regular paper, and it's going to be one-sided. It's going to be great. And it sounds unimportant, but it will cut down on the number of people that don't take care of their excise tax at the registry properly, and that alone creates a lot of problems that we have to deal with. I think that's it. The cost will include 9 users now instead of 1, and everyone from the assessors straight through to the town accountant, and including the town administrator, will have privileges on the system. Right now, there's only 1 person that's on at a time, so when folks call in to see what their balances are, you have to get out of the batch, take care of it, and then get back in where you were. That won't happen anymore. So the use of the cloud is something that's important to all of us, and by buying 9 of them, we made it affordable for those that wanted it, those that have part of this software package, very affordable. So we're all going to be on the cloud now, and that will include the accountant and the assessors. And not to bore you, but this is the tail end of it. It's broken out, so the data coming from the assessors is sent over on a disk, and then we had to borrow a disk reader, hard disk reader from way back, from the computer geeks. They found one for us. We convert it, put it into our system, and then to get it into the tax title, which is the treasurer's side of life, it's all done manually on an Excel spreadsheet. So it's really a mess. So hopefully you'll support this, and it passes.
We have a printed recommendation from the Finance Committee and also from the Capital Planning Committee. Is there any further comment?
My only comment was that the funds for this come from free cash.
Can't get him.
Well,
Can't
he's
see
like
him.
behind the screen.
Yeah.
Does anyone else want to speak on the motion? Ronald Babushka, 30 Brook Lane. Will this new software come from the same software company? Good. I was going to ask Dennis, how many other, do you know about how many other towns or some other towns that are using the new ware?
There's quite a few in Massachusetts. The company is based in Acton, Mass. And this will handle small to medium size. Most of the larger towns use a more expensive, very more expensive system that we can't afford right now. It has so many modules, it's amazing, but it's also difficult to use. You have to have a bigger staff. And many local towns, I don't have the list with me, use the new software. It's a company called Vadar. And we've been using the accounting part of that package for many years now. The town accountant has had it. And this will fully integrate everything from the same vendor. So there's a lot of value to that. It's all predetermined, including printing forms at the old system we have to do by typewriter. Believe it or not.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? If not, I'll ask you to vote. The motion is as printed under Article 3 on your motion sheet. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 4, Community Preservation Act, 2021 Annual Budget. I might state right now up front that we have an article here for 2021, that's the fiscal year we're now in. And then later in the meeting, Article 17 is the one for the fiscal year that starts in July. Tim Wheeler, Chair of the CPA Committee.
I move that the town transfer a reserve from the Community Preservation Fund annual revenues in the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Act Committee for community preservation projects and other expenses in fiscal year 2021 as printed in the warrant for this meeting.
We have motion made and seconded. You want to speak to it now, Tim?
Yes, Tim Wheeler, 232 Pleasant Street. On behalf of the committee, what happens is that since the committee wasn't formed until October of last year, action on the 2021 fiscal year was not possible. There was no recommendation that could be made. And so what you're doing is you're acting on last fiscal year, the one we're in now, to transfer money which is mandated by the state. 10% of all the Community Preservation Act money has to be moved into 3 categories: historic preservation, housing, and recreation and open space. And so that's what you're accomplishing through this action this afternoon.
In your warrant is printed in the town report. Under Article 4, you'll see the amounts of money and the things that they go for that are represented in this under this motion. That's on page 99 of the town report. Finance Committee has a printed recommendation. Do you have anything further to say? Okay. If not, is there anyone else that wants to speak on motion under Article 4? You may have to wave your hand around a lot for me to see them because they're so far away.
Kim Bratton, 75 Boylston Road. Just my question is, I see...
Turn the mic down closer to you. There you go.
Okay. I just have a question. You have this money specified by the different buckets. Do you have specific plans to use that specific amount of money?
Tim?
So the Community Preservation Act Committee has the responsibility of generating a community preservation plan, which we're in the process of doing now. Most likely we'll come to the town with a public hearing in July. We'll probably begin to finalize the plan. We've been working with the different constituent groups that represent a lot of the ways in which this money can be utilized. And we'll probably begin to finalize the plan later in June, have a public hearing in early July. And in that plan, we outlined the mechanisms that are utilized by the community to utilize these funds. So the application process to the Community Preservation Act Committee is outlined. Then the Community Preservation Act Committee makes a recommendation and articles are placed on a warrant at a future town meeting. So no money can be expended without the Community Preservation Act Committee making a recommendation to town meeting and a warrant article being voted on favorably at a future town meeting. The possibility then is there that we could potentially have some projects that are approved if we had a town meeting, let's say in October or November. If not then certainly at the beginning of the town meeting in May of 22. And again, the funds are designated for 10% automatically for historic preservation, 10% for housing, and 10% for open space and recreation. The additional 70%, 5% can be used for administrative costs by the committee. Let's say you have to do an appraisal of a property, or you have to bring in a consultant to assist on some particular project. You might use some of that administrative funds that way. And then the remaining 65%, in the fiscal year we're talking about right now, we've taken no action on the remaining money. But in the article that we're going to deal with later for fiscal 22, you'll see that we've moved money from the fund into a balance fund that then can be voted on at a special town meeting or an annual town meeting. So all of those funds, the additional 65%, become available for articles that could be voted on.
When I last checked.
So right now, all the money continues just to sit until we have a future town meeting where particular articles are presented and you vote in favor of those.
Is there anyone else? Hearing none, I'm going to ask you to vote on the motion. It is as shown on Article 4 on your motion sheet. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion passes by unanimous vote. Article 5. Special Article Closeout. You have a list of different previous articles that have been voted by town meetings in the past, and this is the leftover money at the end, either not having been spent or as leftover after the project is done. Is there a motion under Article 5? Scott Hawkins of the Select Board.
I move to close out the remaining balances in the special article accounts to be sourced and identified, from which each article was previously funded as set forth in the table below, and that unspent funds from raise and appropriate and free cash be closed out to the general fund.
And it includes the list under it, which is also on the motion sheet, and we're voting on that list as it is on the motion sheet. Finance Committee has a positive recommendation. Is there anything further to be said? Does anyone else want to speak to the motion? Hearing none, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 6, Bullet House renovations, expanded article scope. Chris Keefe with the Select Board.
I move that the town expand the scope of Article 16 of the May 2nd, 2016 annual town meeting for the purpose of renovation work for the Bullard House to include design, surveys, and engineering.
Motion is made and seconded. You want to speak to it, Chris?
I think it's self-explanatory. These items were not included in the original article, unless one of the historical commission members wants to speak to it.
It essentially says that the renovation work, at times, if you're going to do renovation work, you need to do design surveys and engineering to make sure you're doing the right thing. So that it just allows the use of the funds for that also. Is there a comment from Finance Committee under Article 6? No comment. Anyone else want to speak to the motion? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 7. The fiscal year 2021 capital budget. Oh, okay.
Hi, Anna Crane, Chair, Capital Planning. Article 7, I move that the town transfer the sum of $720,000 from free cash and the sum of $99,139 from Highland Commons Public Safety Mitigation Funds for the sum total of $819,139 to fund the fiscal year 2021 capital budget as printed in Article 7 of the warrant for this meeting, and that unexpended or unencumbered funds for item numbers 1, 2, 6, and 7 be closed out to the general fund. For items number 3 and 4, returned to the Highland Commons Public Safety Mitigation Fund.
Motion is made and seconded. You want to speak to it, Anna?
As usual, we had a group of requests from town offices for capital purchases and items. So we narrowed it down to 8. The rooftop air handler unit on the public safety, on the town offices portion of the public safety building. The roof and the rooftop air handler unit both need to be replaced. One of our air handler units has completely stopped working, so it needs to be replaced, but in the replacement of it, we also have a leaking roof that needs to be replaced before we can replace an air handling unit. So those are our first 2 items on the list. Replacing our police cruiser, item number 3, we do that every year as part of a revolving plan to keep our police cruisers up to date. Fire and EMS, we're replacing a non-operational pickup with a pickup that works so that we could use it. And hot top, item number 5, this also is something that occurs every year so that we can add to funding that we already have in order to keep our roads up to date. Item number 6, a loader replacement. We have a 21-year-old front-end loader that mostly works, and so we'd like to replace it with a brand new loader that always works. We also would like to get a wood chipper. Our wood chipper is 25 years old, and as you guys know, we have plenty of old trees around here that will need to get chipped up, so we would like to purchase a wood chipper, as well as finally continuing to fund our capital stabilization fund. So last year we established and funded a savings account for capital projects so that we do not always have to go to free cash or general funds, and as our plan to take 10% of our budget every year and put it into our stabilization fund for further use, we have done so as well. So we've put $125,000 into the capital stabilization fund.
As Anna commented on that list of expenditures, you will find them on page 100 of your town report as part of the article that was published in the warrant. And you will note that there are funding expiration dates that are included there, and the places to which the money is returned are in the motion that she read. Finance Committee has a positive recommendation. Anything further to be said? Stan Rogolinsky, the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Barry. Sorry, the only thing I would say is that Finance defers to capital planning on this, and we have a representative who sits on this board, which is Janet. So we do recommend all the hard work that they did and recommend that you support this.
Anyone else want to speak on the motion? Hearing nobody, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. That took care of about 5 or 6 or 8 articles in our old method of doing things. Now we have Articles 8 through 14. We'll have a motion there. Chris Keefe.
I move to approve the motions as printed in the warrant for the meeting under Articles 8 and 10 through 14.
motion is to approve the articles as printed in the warrant under Articles 8 and 10 through 14. All of those articles are things that we have in each annual town meeting and usually pass easily. The motions are there and clear. If anybody has a question on any of those, we'll take them now. You'll note that we're not doing Article 9. We will do that separately in just a minute. Any comments on any of these from finance or anyone else? If not, I'm going to ask you to vote. I'm going to use this as another practice for the electronic voting. There's one article here that might require more of a motion, and therefore I'm going to ask, more of a more accurate count, so therefore I'm going to ask you to vote there. We will open the voting on this now.
And
For 20 seconds.
Barry, this is the motion on Articles 8, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Yeah. Vote now. Bottom right-hand corner of the screen, if you can see it to read it, the number increases as we're voting, as the people's votes are tallied. It doesn't tell you how they voted, it just says we've had 74 people vote, whatever. And we can close that vote now, please. And we had 80 people vote, and the result? 77 yes, 3 no. Okay, Article 9. Peg Stone of the Select Board.
I move that the various reports of officers and committees of the town as contained in the 2020 annual town report be accepted by the town, but without imposing any personal liability on any individuals who are officers of any board for the action taken hereby, and that the text of Article 18, as printed on page 102, be replaced with the following. Article 18, to raise and appropriate or borrow or transfer from available funds or otherwise provide all necessary sums of money to defray the town's expenses for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, and to determine the salaries of the town officers for that period or take any action relative thereto.
What happened here is that we had a misprint in the town report. If you look at Article 18 in the town report, you'll find that it is the same article that shows up as Article 19 in the town report. We didn't want to do that twice, and Article 18 is the one to appropriate all the money for the budget of the town. We didn't want to leave that one out. The posted warrant was correct and had Article 18 as we have it in this motion. This is simply to correct the printing in the town report as we accept the town report, written reports to the town. Is there anything to be said about this motion? Hearing nothing, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Are there any outstanding town reports? Are there any town reports that a committee or officer of the town wants to make now because they didn't manage to, it wasn't in the town report? Hearing none, we will pass along to the next article. Article 16, Cable Access Committee PEG funding. Anderson of the Cable Access Committee.
Trish Anderson, 55 Peach Hill Road, Cable Access Committee. I move that the town appropriate from the Public Education and Government Access Cable-related Fund the sum of $59,520 as a grant to be used for the fiscal year 2022 operating purposes. An additional $40,000 to fund the purchase and installation of audio and video equipment and any costs related to or incidental thereto in meeting rooms located in the town offices of 23 Linden Street in accordance with the PEG Access Grant and Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 44, Section 53F, 3/4. Said funds to be expended by the Cable Access Committee.
Thank you. You want to speak to it?
These are funds that we already have that are being managed by the town, so they're not tax money. Our budget just went up a bit because we are doing so much because of the pandemic, so we've been trying to get all the meetings on our YouTube channel so everyone in the town can see them. This is not taxpayer money, it's actually cable subscriber money.
We have a written recommendation of the Finance Committee in favor. Is there any further comment? Are there others that wish to speak to this? Would you say just another word about the work that was going to be done in the town office meeting rooms and what that's about?
We wanted to have just more availability for town meetings, so we're just putting some automated cameras that can be turned on during the open meetings, and just that they're more available, and we record them and put them on the YouTube channel for all the town people to see.
This will enable the recording of meetings of various boards and so forth to be recorded, and sometimes without somebody having to go in and do it.
Yes, it's recorded and then it's edited. Or we are also working towards streaming live.
We are streaming live right now.
We are streaming live right now.
Anyone else to speak on it? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Thank you. Article 17, Community Preservation Act, Fiscal Year 2022. Tim Wheeler.
I move that the town appropriate and transfer reserve from the Community Preservation Fund annual revenues in the amounts recommended by the Community Preservation Act Committee for committee administrative expenses, community preservation projects, and other expenses in fiscal year 2022, with each item to be considered a separate appropriation as printed in the warrant for this meeting.
Motion is made and seconded. This is the same kind of action that we already took for the previous fiscal year. Tim, do you want to speak to it further?
Just to reiterate, these are based on estimated figures. We appreciate the work that June has done with the committee in trying to fathom the ways in which we ought to anticipate revenues. Some of these revenues come from a state match. In this case, Berlin last year received almost $200,000 from the state as a result of being at a 3% rate for this fee. And so, in essence, last year we generated close to $500,000, which means that those funds, as I said before, become available for warrant articles potentially even in the fall of this coming year. And it means that there are a number of projects that could be dealt with that a lot of people have looked forward to working on for a number of years. So, and again, the numbers are specified in your account.
The Finance Committee has a written recommendation in favor. Is there anything that they wish to say further? Is there anyone else who wants to speak on this motion? article itself, Article 17 in your warrant, as printed on page 102 in the town report. If I hear nothing more, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Article 15. Excuse me, that's wrong.
18.
Article 18. This is the article under which we do the budget. The motions under this article will be given by the Finance Committee. They've worked long and hard with other town officials getting the budgets and things ready, and I want you to we'll pay attention to them as we start this process. Stan Rogolinski of the Finance Committee.
All right, if anyone's fallen asleep, wake up. This is the exciting part. Here. All right, General Government, Motion 1. I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,369,155 to fund items 1 through 47, and to transfer from free cash the sum of $50,000 to item 11, as recommended by the Finance Committee for FY 2022. I don't actually. But we'll get you one.
Oh, it's all right. We'll work it out here. It's the same one that's on the motion sheet.
That is correct.
You were given a yellow sheet when you are entered. Most of this is exactly the same as it is in the town report. There may be one or two little departures, but if you use the yellow sheet, you should match all the motions that are coming up and the sections that we're working on. Right now, this is the first page, which is general government. It's on the first page of the yellow sheet, and it has all the amounts listed for the under this motion. It actually goes over onto the top of the next sheet. Thank you. Anyone have a question or wish to explain anything on this? You want to speak to it, Stan?
Well, it's as printed in the annual report. The town budget was worked on with the understanding that we are still in the pandemic environment. We are still operating not in a spending freeze, but in a as necessary basis. So with that understanding, the vast majority of line items in the budget have certainly an attempt made to be held constant, salaries in particular, but all committees were asked to critically look at their budget and to make an attempt to not ask for things this year if things can wait until a clearer picture becomes available with finances, with the pandemic hopefully breaking. So there's still a lot of uncertainty with tax revenues, with commercial revenues, with new growth, with hotel taxes, with basically all of the revenue sources for the town are in flux. And this is our best attempt to put forth a budget that is held as constant as we could, to avoid raising taxes as much as we could. And this is the first piece of it.
Anything else to be said on this motion? Hearing nothing, I will ask you to vote. All those in favor, say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Public safety.
Yep.
Scott Schultz. I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $2,153,772 to fund items 48 through 69,
appropriate from the Highland Commons Public Safety Mitigation Receipts Reserved for Appropriation account the sum of $210,000 to item 49, police wages, full-time, $145,410, and item 53, fire and EMS wages, full-time, $64,590, to appropriate from rescue squad receipts reserved for appropriation the sum of $100,000 to item 53, fire and EMS wages, full-time, and to appropriate from the inspector's offset receipts account the sum of $165,000 to item 60, plumbing and gas inspector wages, part-time, $65,000, and item 62, electrical inspector wages, part-time, $100,000, as shown on the handout for the meeting titled Fiscal Year 22 Finance Committee Recommended Budget.
Thank you. Motion is made and seconded. It is in the form that is on the motion sheet that you had given to you as you arrived today. And the items that it covers are on the second page of your yellow sheet under public safety. The column recommended. Anything to be said further on this motion?
The one unknown on this one is both police and fire contracts are up at the end of fiscal year 21, so we don't have a number specifically for fiscal year 22. At present, you will see the salary numbers are level funded, and we've reserved some funds, which you just previously voted for on line item 11, the contingency line item. That was a temporary line item that additional funds were kept there to handle any police or fire contract increases.
Anyone else want to speak on this? Oh, I'm sorry. Christine Flynn. Turn the mic down toward you. Yep.
Chris Flynn, South Street. I just have a question on, under the public safety on line item 48. Police salary, is that the chief of police salary?
We
That is
posted
correct.
on our Facebook page.
It's $152,000.
$152,000 FY21. The recommended for FY22 is $150,603.
The commissioner of police in New York City doesn't make that.
Want to bet?
Yeah, I just looked it up before I came. 101,000. Wow. Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else want to comment?
I still doubt it.
Hearing nothing, I'll ask you to vote. The motion is for all the items under public safety, as in the written motion on your motion sheet, public safety. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries in the affirmative.
Public Works. I move to raise.
I'm
Oh,
gonna
sorry.
stop here, and I've got to do something else first, okay?
Aye, aye.
I'm going to step down for this motion. As cemetery commissioner, I'm going to try to do something under this motion. So I have to have a temporary moderator elected, and I'll call on the town clerk to do that election.
Is there a nomination for a temporary moderator?
I second.
Okay, Tim Wheeler has been named and seconded. Are there any other nominations? Okay, if none, I will ask you to vote.
Jim didn't say no, so that's a good sign. Good point.
Public Works. So, this is items 70 through 81. And does someone from the Finance Committee wish to speak?
I would love to, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you.
I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $705,864 to fund items 70 through 81, to appropriate from the transfer station sticker and recycling offset receipts account the sum of $120,000 to item 79 transfer station expenses, and to appropriate the sum of $6,000 from general cemetery receipts and the sum of $2,200 from sale of lots to item 81 cemetery expenses, as recommended by the Finance Committee for FY22.
And we have a motion and a second. Do you care to comment?
No, but I have a feeling that the former moderator, Mr. Hager, would love to.
Mr. Ager, would you care to be recognized? Mr. Ager from the Cemetery Commissioners.
Barry Yeager, 51 South Street. I'm a member of the Cemetery Commissioners Board. I move to transfer $3,428 from cemetery part-time salary to cemetery expenses, making line item 80 zero and line item 81 $15,668.
Mr. Ager, would you care to explain?
I'll try. If you look at the line for cemetery expenses, you'll see that there's some changes shown there from previous years. There is some transition taking place. Our groundskeeping for next year is going to be taken up under Highway Department, and so a substantial sum of money has been moved from our expense account to the highway. At the same time, we have another transition, and that is that our 35-year cemetery superintendent, George Pendergast, passed away last August 1st. And for the current year, the commissioners have been handling his duties at no cost to the town for this year as an interim measure. But for next year, we would like to pay somebody to do it. This money that we're moving had been earmarked for the cemetery superintendent's salary. And two of the commissioners have been handling his duties, and for the next fiscal year only, we would like to pay one of the commissioners as an independent contractor to handle the superintendent's duties. That would be paid out of the expense budget. We have done the required things under the conflict of interest statute to allow us to employ one of our members to do work as a contract worker. We have not done the things under the conflict of interest statute that would allow us to pay the person as an employee. So therefore, we want to take it from the employee account and put it into the expense account so that we can pay it that way for this year only. And by another year, we'll have further remodeling of things, and if we're going to continue with this kind of a setup, we would put the money back into the salary line and accomplish the things that need to be done to do that under the conflict of interest law. So that's the explanation for what we're trying to do. The total amount of money for cemeteries is the same as it is in the proposed budget.
So Mr. Ager's motion is an amendment, and I'd like to ask the Finance Committee to give
Given that the bottom line number has not changed, the Finance Committee is in support of this.
questions about the motion to amend? All right, so we're voting on a motion to amend. The motion is to move to transfer $3,428 from cemetery part-time salary to cemetery expenses, making line item 80 0 and line item 81 $15,668. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed?
No.
It's not unanimous, but it does pass. And now we have the Public Works motion with as amended. So the motion is to move to raise and appropriate the sum of $705,864 to fund items 70 through 81, to appropriate from the transfer station sticker and recycling offset receipts account the sum of $120,000 to item 79, transportation expenses, and to appropriate the sum of, well, we've just talked about it. Yeah. Correct. But the same bottom line. So, all those in favor of approving the Public Works portion of the budget, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? That's unanimous.
Human Services. Scott?
I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $114,520 to fund items 82 through 93 in the Finance Committee's recommended fiscal year 2022 budget.
You want to speak to that one, sir?
Yeah, I really don't have anything else to add on this particular one.
Anyone else want to speak on this motion? This is the Human Services part of the budget on your yellow sheet. I don't think I see any hands. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Culture and Recreation.
I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $176,516 to fund items 94 through 100 in the Finance Committee's recommended FY22 budget.
Anything to be said on this motion? The Culture and Recreation section of the budget. Hearing nothing, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Unanimous vote. Debt and interest. Scott.
I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $308,275 to fund items 101 and 102, and to appropriate from septic loan receipts available for appropriation the sum of $4,308 to item 102 principal, as recommended by the Finance Committee for fiscal year 2022.
Motion is made and seconded. It's as on your sheet. Is there any further comment?
You will notice that there was a significant reduction, primarily because of the payoff of the fire truck loan over last fiscal year.
Anyone else want to say anything? Hearing no one, I will ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion unanimously approved. We're now down to intergovernmental expenditures. These are some of our biggest numbers because all of the schools are in there, along with some other smaller items. First motion, Stanley?
Yeah, I'll just do all the intergovernmental ones instead of handing these off. So for the Central Massachusetts Regional Planning Commission, I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $863 to fund item 103 in the Finance Committee's recommended budget.
Anyone want to comment on this one? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote.
For the Assabet Regional Housing Consortium, I move to appropriate the affordable housing account from the affordable housing account the sum of $12,000 to fund item 104 in the Finance Committee's recommended FY22 budget.
Motion is made and seconded. Are there any comments on this motion? Hearing none, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously.
For Assabet Valley Regional Technical High School, I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $549,288 to fund items 105 and 106 in the Finance Committee's recommended FY22 budget. That's both for our assessment and for their capital assessment.
Motion is made and seconded there. Anything want to speak on that?
The only thing I would say on that is just the increase in the assessment is due to, I believe it's one additional student. That's correct.
Anyone else? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion is unanimously carried.
BMS, Berlin Memorial School. I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,443,613 to fund item 107 and to transfer from free cash the sum of $68,000 to item 108, Berlin Memorial Capital Assessment, as recommended by the Finance Committee for FY22. So again, this is both the assessment and the capital assessment, operating and capital.
Anyone want to comment on this or question? I don't see anything, so I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Tohoto, I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $3,296,958 to fund items 109 and 110 as recommended by the Finance Committee for FY22. Again, both assessment and capital, or operating and capital.
Anything to be said on this motion?
The one thing I would like to point out to the general public on this is that you might notice that this is a fairly significant increase of 6%, but I would also ask you to understand that most of this is driven by special education costs and special education transportation, which are completely out of the school's control. So if any student requires special education programming, it is required to provide it for those students, and it's just something we have to live with. So the vast majority of this increase is due to that.
Any other comment?
And then actually the one other thing, Barry, that I would point out is under the capital section of this, Tohoto has renegotiated their bond for the building of the building, and that has resulted in a significant cost savings to the town, to both towns, us and Boylston, moving forward, and that has actually significantly helped offset the cost for the coming years.
Anyone else? ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. One more section of the budget. Mr. Schultz.
Miscellaneous benefits and insurance. I move to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,490,290 to fund items 111 through 118 in the Finance Committee's recommended FY 2022 budget.
Is there anything you want to speak further to it, or?
Nothing additional.
Okay, does anyone else want to speak to it? If not, I will ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Before I do Article 19, I knew there was something I was going to forget at the beginning of the meeting, and that is that I forgot to announce that we can use the restrooms, the toilet facilities in the school. And if you wanted, you go through the gate here and follow down and into the building, and you can, the restrooms outside the gym are available to us as they normally would be for town meeting. Last year we had porta potties. We decided we could save a little money on this one by, and the school felt they were a lot safer letting the general public in than they were a year ago. Okay, Article 19, welcome to Berlin Road sign. Mr. Timothy Wheeler of the Planning Board.
Tim Wheeler, on behalf of the Economic Development Committee. The Planning Board appoints the Economic Development Committee, so they had asked if we would make this motion on their behalf. I move that the town transfer from free cash the sum of $2,000 to fund a portion of the purchase and installation of 3 Welcome to Berlin roadside signs. Said funds to be expended by the Planning Board.
Motion is made and seconded under the article. Do you want to speak to it at all? Or?
The important thing is that this is just the partial funding. I think it's a goodwill act on the part of the town to help support a lot of the local businesses that would be asked to participate as well. And 3 strategic signs will materialize. Buy local, of course, is key during this crisis. We found that the buy local response from the citizens has been pretty positive, and that's a way to maintain the local economy, and the Economic Development Committee is keenly aware of that and wants to help promote a lot of local businesses as much as they can. So, thank you.
Finance Committee has and also Capital Planning have positive recommendations. Is there something to be said on that? I guess we're all set on that. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 20, yes. Mr. Wheeler, if we would kindly come back.
I'm looking for Tom Sanford. Is Tom? Oh, there he is. Good. Okay, now I know. I can't recognize him. I'll be in touch with you in a minute.
Who was that masked man?
Article 20, cemetery driveway paving. Do we have a motion in regard to Article 20? Mr. Ager.
Barry Yeager, 51 South Street, a member of the Cemetery Commissioners. I move that the town transfer from free cash the sum of $15,000 to pay driveways in the cemeteries, including all incidental and related expenses, and that any unexpended or unencumbered funds be closed out to the general fund effective June 30, 2023.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Yeager, would you like to speak to this motion?
We've done two previous efforts at paving the drives in the South Cemetery. This one, we're going to use this money with a previous appropriation that's still available, and with the help of the Highway Department, pave the rest of the sections that we want to in the South Cemetery at this time. There are some sections there of our old stone paved driveways that are still in very good shape, and we expect they're going to go on for probably another decade or so. But this will complete what we want to do in South Cemetery, and if there's a little bit left over, we will be asking for more next year so that we can finally begin to pave the main drive at the North Cemetery, which is still totally a dirt drive. That gets to be a bit of a hardship if it's really plowing snow in the winter and things like that. So that's kind of what we're looking at. We've been doing this as a program, and by the time that we come to you next year, we'll have a clear idea of just how much the paving that we want to do in the North Cemetery is going to cost.
I see that the Finance Committee and the Capital Planning Committee have both voted in favor of this. Does the Finance Committee have anything further to add? Are there any questions in regard to this article? Very good. The Finance Committee has asked me to interrupt the proceedings and say that if you want water, please raise your hand. It's on behalf of the Finance Committee, I guess. This is wonderful. Oh, the nurse and Janet is responding. All right, we'll vote on Article 20, Cemetery Driveway Paving. The motion is to transfer from free cash the sum of $15,000 to pave driveways in the cemeteries, including all incidental and related expenses, and that any unexpended or unencumbered funds be closed out to the general fund effective June 30th, 2023. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wheeler. And also another statement of mercy from the town administrator. If you need sunscreen, see her over here.
We're gonna run out, so put your hand up if you want one.
Article 21, establish tax title revolving fund. A motion under Article 21. Dennis Farabee, Town Treasurer.
$247 Highway. Mr. Moderator, I move that the town accept the provisions of Mass Chapter 166 for the purpose of establishing a tax title collection revolving fund for the treasurer and collector.
Motion is made and seconded that the town accept the provisions of Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 60, Section 15B, for the purpose of establishing a tax title collection revolving fund for the treasurer-collector. You want to speak to it, Dennis?
Yeah, the tax title account is a very difficult one to predict. This year, I expected the bankrupt companies to give us a little trouble with collections, and fortunately, all have paid. I'm not sure that will continue in the future, but that's what we were focusing on primarily. We also thought there'd be a lot of folks that couldn't pay their taxes because of COVID. But what has really happened is there's a bunch of folks that tend to be elderly and they haven't applied for what we call deferred taxes or other relief. And we've had a long list of people, longer than should usually happen, just because they don't have enough finances most of the time. And as a result, the budget for the tax title was way short to start the proceedings that we have to do legally once it's in tax title status. So by setting up this revolving fund, when we recover money from the folks that go past due, and it can be considerable, just closed 2 cases that both are in the $86,000 range because of interest and penalties and lawyer fees, etc. This fund will allow us to keep anything that was an expense. It's a really important expense. None of the interest we earn either with this account or in the treasurer or in the collector's accounts as they move to that status will go to this fund. So, and the taxes themselves go where the accountant puts them, and the fund slowly builds up so that eventually the line item becomes less and less important and then disappears, and the fund gets larger, and it will be big enough to handle the surprise amounts that were needed from time to time. Many towns have already done this. We're kind of late in the schedule, but it's something that we feel is important.
We have a positive recommendation from the Finance Committee and also from the Select Board. Massachusetts General Laws, Section 60, Chapter 15B requires that a recommendation of the Select Board be part of the actions to do with this action. Is there a comment by anybody in regard to Article 21? Hearing none, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 22, Energy Committee Special Purpose Stabilization Fund.
I move that the town transfer from free cash the sum of $10,407 in amount equivalent to the receipts generated by the town's municipal energy aggregation program adders in fiscal year 2020 to the Energy Committee Special Purpose Stabilization Fund established under Article 31 of the May 6, 2019 annual town meeting, and accept the 4th paragraph of Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B, which allows the dedication without further appropriation of all future municipal energy aggregation adder receipts to the Energy Committee Special Purpose Stabilization Fund established under General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5B, to be effective for the first fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020, for the purpose of paying for future projects designed to improve the town's energy and energy efficiency or water conservation in accordance with the goals established by the Massachusetts Green Community Program.
Motion is made and seconded. It is in the form that you have on your motion sheet. Does anybody want to speak to it?
Eloise, do you have anything since you're on the committee? Are there any questions? Eloise is on our energy committee. I don't know if our other 2 members of the committee are here or not today. Oh.
Any questions that someone has on this? We have recommendations from both Capital Planning and Finance Committee in favor. Any other comment? Hearing none, I will ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 23, movable radar speed limit sign. Selectman Scott Harper.
I move that the town transfer from the Highland Commons Public Safety Mitigation Fund the sum of $12,000 to purchase movable radar speed limit signs, including acquisition, installation, and equipping, and other expenses incidental or related hereto, and to be placed on various public ways in the town from time to time by the Berlin Police Department.
Motion is made and seconded in the form that's on your motion sheet. You want to speak to it, Scott? We'll have the police chief comment on it and explain anything that may be needed.
So this article is something that was supposed to be on last year's warrant, but we removed it to expedite the meeting last year. These signs are similar to what you see in our neighboring communities. They're posted on 117. They tell you what your speed is, give you some reinforcement. If you're doing the correct thing, someone will say thank you. They have a smiley face. So what we're looking to do is to purchase 3 to 4 of these signs that will give us that positive reinforcement. On at least one of the signs, we would look for to have a data collection component. And what that does is that tracks the speed of all the vehicles that go by it. It will give us the class of the vehicles, whether it's a truck, a car, and also it'll do some reporting for us. So one of the requests that I get is often on speed limits. To set speed limits or to request the state to set speed limits, we have to determine the 80th percentile of speed of traffic on the road. So this would automatically do that for us, and it would also give us some enforcement reporting. It would tell us the times of the day where there's more traffic that tends to be above the speed limit.
We have a positive comment from Finance Committee and also from Capital Planning. Does anything else further to be said on this motion? Anyone else? If not, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries unanimously. Advanced life support.
I move that the town transfer from Highland Commons Public Safety Mitigation Funds $17,500 to conduct an independent analysis to determine the feasibility of establishing an advanced life support ALS level service in the town of Berlin, and to study local and regional service options as well as the short and long-term costs associated with ALS service enhancements.
Motion is made and seconded. Okay, do you want to speak to it, or does somebody else want to speak? Does anybody want to speak? I don't know.
He's way out there.
So currently, what this motion will do is look at the opportunity for Berlin to see if we can enact ALS services instead of relying on other towns to come help us when we need it. Oh, there he is. He pokes up like, like the whack-a-mole. So if there are truly any more specific questions, our most awesome Chief Clerk is walking towards the microphone, and he can give us a little bit more skinny.
Chief Clerk of the Fire Department.
Good afternoon. Are there any questions directly from the audience here that we can have on that? What we're trying to do, okay, sorry, go ahead.
Come up front.
Michael Gaskin, 6 Alden Drive. My question for Chief Clark is, in the event of an EMS call in Berlin which requires ALS intervention, where do the ALS resources come from currently, and are there deficiencies in that response in terms of response time or cost that might be identified by this feasibility study?
Chief?
Very good question. Actually, the availability of ALS has been enhanced lately by the in-service of the Bolton fire truck. They have a ALS truck that's they call it intercept. I'm sorry. It's enhanced by, very recently from Bolton Fire. They put a ALS trucking service, intercept, what they call it is, and if we have a call at the BLS level in Berlin and at the communication center at Devon's, if it meets the criteria to have paramedics respond, the nearest available one. On the south side, it's Patriot out of Hudson or Marlboro, and on the north side, it's Bolton coming out of their firehouse up on the north side there. So we have it now. There are some delays. If they're busy, we don't get it, then we run at BLS, which should be run at the ALS. But this would give us the availability to have paramedics first out the door for the town of Berlin. We've made great strides with the putting the per diem program into place, and this will just be an enhancement for that system. And it will be, rather than being at the basic level, EMT will be at the paramedic advanced level. They bring a lot of skills to the street. It's just amazing to see in my career what we've come from over the years, and the medics are doing fantastic work out in the street. And it's like, that was a very good question, and that will be answered in the sustainability and feasibility, because we want to make sure that we can continue to do it if we start it. It's easy to start it and then back up from it maybe, but we want to make sure that we can afford it in the town of Berlin, sustainable and feasible, and then move forward. Thank you.
Is there anyone else? Yes, Scott Hawkins.
Chief Clark, the proposal today is just a study to see if it's feasible. There's actually no actual changes implemented yet. It would take another vote at town meeting to actually implement ALS services, correct?
That's correct. Is there anyone else? Hearing no one, all of those in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 25, parking enforcement. Mr. Hawkins.
I move that the town accept the provisions of Chapter 90, Section 20A of the Massachusetts General Laws as printed in the warrant for the meeting.
Warrant is, motion is made and seconded as on your motion sheet. We have a positive recommendation from Finance Committee. Anything further from Finance? I'll call on Chief Galvin to speak to this in regard to the whole business of why this is necessary.
I will try and keep this as simple as possible. If you look in the warrant, there's a lot of language in accepting this provision in the law. But the simple part of it is to allow the Berlin Police Department to enforce parking violations. So you may see some places in town we have no parking signs, or there's restricted parking for handicapped individuals. If we have a situation right now where someone's in a handicapped spot that doesn't have the proper placard, or they're in a no parking section, we can't write a ticket. So this would allow us to have the select board to appoint a clerk, not a member of the police department, that would do hearings, and then the board would also be able to create a set of parking regulations. I was asked before about the fine structure. Most of the fines would be $25. There are particular statutes that are particular violations that would have much larger, and particularly a handicap violation. But we've been able to enforce parking at the Solomon Pond Mall because we're part of the Assabet Public Safety District, but we actually write those tickets through the city of Marlboro. And now that we have Highland Commons, River Bridge, if we get called and there's somebody blocking a handicap spot that parked on a handicap ramp, there's nothing we can do about it.
Anyone else want to speak on the motion? Hearing no one, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries by unanimous vote. Article 26, parking enforcement. Mr. Hawkins.
Yes, I move that the town accept provisions of Chapter 40, Section 22D of the Massachusetts General Law as printed in the warrant for this meeting.
in the same form as on your motion sheet. Chief, you want to speak to that?
So this is just a second part of parking enforcement. There are certain rules or certain laws, certain situations where the town may need to have a vehicle removed or towed. In order to legally do that, the town would need to accept this section. So if we had someone, again, I said they were blocking a handicap ramp, they were parking, blocking the roadway during snow removal, this would allow the town to legally tow a vehicle.
Anyone else want to speak to the motion? Hearing no one, I'll ask you to vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Motion carries in the affirmative. Unanimously. Article 27, zoning bylaw amendment. Hi. Tom?
Tom Sanford, 425 Sawyer Hill Road, Planning Board. I move that the town amend the zoning bylaw, section 540, home-based contracting business, by adding a new 540.10. The business must be owned and operated by a resident of the dwelling.
The motion is made and seconded. You can speak to it, John.
The Berlin Planning Board held a public hearing on April 13th, 2021 to consider the comments concerning Article 27 on the annual town meeting warrant to be held on May 15th, 2021. At the Planning Board meeting held on Tuesday, April 27th, 2021, Planning Board voted 4 in favor, 0 opposed to support Article 27. Basically, what we're trying to do is we feel that if you're going to establish a business and incubate it in the town, that you should be a resident of the dwelling.
Is there any comment or question in regard to this amendment to the zoning bylaw? Yes.
Wesley Durant, 203 South Street. Is there an exemption for existing businesses that exist in town that are operated at residences to which the people don't physically live at this time, just the family property?
This would affect businesses going forward in the future.
Anyone else? Hearing no one, we'll proceed to a vote. Find your voting appliance, because this is a 2/3 vote to amend the zoning bylaw. Find your voting appliance, and we will we will open the voting for a 2/3 vote on the motion under Article 27 right now. Close the voting now, please. The vote is 74 yes, 8 no, a total of 84 votes cast. 82 votes cast. You'll see, if you can see the screen across the top of the screen, there's a green banner to tell us that it passed by the required 2/3 vote. Thank you. Article 27.
28.
Nope. Article 28.
Article 28. I move that the town amend zoning bylaw section 541, table of home-based contracting businesses by adding as registered by the RMV after every instance where GBW appears.
The motion is as given on your sheet, on your motion sheet. Tom, you want to speak to it further?
The Berlin Planning Board held a public hearing on April 13th, 2021 to consider the comments concerning Article 28 on the annual town meeting warrant to be held on May 15th, 2021. At the planning board meeting held on Tuesday, April 27th, 2021, the planning board voted 4 in favor, 0 opposed to support Article 28.
We have the required vote of, required report of the planning board on record. Would you continue, Tom?
Sure. Basically, what we're trying to do is to further define the current statute by adding as registered with the RMV after the occurrence where the GVW is, so that there is no question or there's no ambiguities of what the GVW stands for and how it's defined.
GVW being gross vehicle weight.
Yes.
Anyone else? Yes. Mr. Duran.
Did you define a minimum gross vehicle weight to be considered into commercial? Okay. Do you know what it is?
Anyone else? If not, find your appliance, and I will ask you to begin voting now. And we will close the voting, please. And the 2/3, it does have the required 2/3 vote, so the motion passes. Article 29, Tim Wheeler, the planning board.
Article 29, I move that the town amend the zoning bylaw, section 510, in-law apartments, section 512, maximum size by adding including any proposed addition or modification after total floor area.
Motion is made and seconded as on the motion sheet. Tim, the report of planning board.
The Berlin Planning Board held a public hearing on April 13th, 2021 to consider comments concerning Article 29 on the annual town meeting warrant to be held on May 15th, 2021. At a planning board meeting held on Tuesday, April 27th, 2021, the planning board voted 4 in favor, 0 opposed to Article 29.
Do you have further explanation?
So the objective here is to allow someone to expand a residential unit, and as they expand it to perhaps include an in-law apartment, to have that total area calculated into the formula that we use to determine whether you meet the zoning requirements. Currently, you can only have a certain percentage of your structure used for an in-law apartment or an accessory apartment. Sometimes in some of the smaller units in town, that might be rather confining, so this gives people an opportunity to utilize the property that they live on a little more efficiently.
Anyone else want to speak on this motion? no one, I'll ask you to vote. We are going again to do the electronic voting, and we will start to vote now. I will call an end to the vote at this time, and we'll get the results. "77 in favor, 2 opposed, total of 79 votes. It passes with the required 2/3 majority. Article 30, zoning bylaw regarding common driveways. Mr. Sanford.
Article 30, I move that the town amend the zoning bylaw, section 710, common driveways, by adding a new section, 716.8, any change or structural addition or modification beyond general maintenance in the location, width, length, height, or material composition of a common driveway affecting its accessibility by users or emergency vehicles, or redirecting water runoff must be approved by the Berlin Planning Board. If at the discretion of the Planning Board, it's determined that a modification is substantial, a public hearing will be required.
Motion is made and seconded. You want to speak to it? Tom, you have the report of the planning board? Yes.
The Berlin Planning Board held a public hearing on April 13th, 2021 to consider the comments concerning Article 30 on the annual town meeting warrant to be held on May 15th, 2021. At the Planning Board meeting held on Tuesday, April 27th, 2021, the Planning Board voted 4 in favor, 0 opposed to support Article 30.
Want to speak further to it?
Sure. The Planning Board felt that any alterations to a common driveway that was substantial, the common driveway first went through a public process to get it approved, and we felt that if there was substantial changes affecting common driveways, that you should come back before our board and see if it is a material change that is significant enough that we should feel we should open it back up to a public review and public comments.
Does anyone else want to speak to the motion under Article 30? Hearing no one, I will ask you to vote. Again, it's a 2/3 vote. I'll call for an electronic vote, and we start voting now. We'll close voting now and get the result. We have 75 yes, 7 no. The motion carries with the required 2/3 majority. Article 31. Mr. Wheeler.
I move that the town amend the zoning bylaw, section 585.4, medical marijuana and adult use marijuana establishments by adding a new section 585.4, 6, no more than 3 retail marijuana establishments shall be permitted at any given time.
motion is made and seconded. The planning board's report.
The Berlin Planning Board held a public hearing on April 13th, 2021 to consider comments concerning Article 31 on the annual town meeting warrant to be held on May 15th, 2021. At the planning board meeting held on Tuesday, April 27th, 2021, the planning board voted 4 in favor, 0 opposed to Article 31 after amending the article by deleting the number 2 from the second sentence and substituting the number 3.
Will you speak to that change first, Tim?
So the state has a formula that they use in determining the minimum number of marijuana establishments, retail, that can exist in a community. The planning board initially had used the number 2, but on further review, we discovered that the number of package stores in the community dictated that we couldn't go below 3, and so the motion reads as 3, and the planning board, because we acted initially on an article that hadn't been modified yet, changed the number in our report to the 3. And we think it's reasonable for a town of our size to use this number as a baseline. If at some point in the future it was determined that that number was too low, then that's something we could address at a future date. But at this point, it's essentially taking the minimum and using that as the number.
I will comment that the proposal was 2, and that at the present time there was no limit on in our present bylaw. So this is adding a limit from what it has been in the past, and therefore the 3 is perfectly acceptable within the scope of the article. Does anyone else want to comment on this or ask a question? With a small crowd today, we can be a little less formal.
I'm Kay Schooner, I live at 24 Village Lane. The question is, how many do we have now? And do we have to have 3?
Tim, would you answer it for us?
So right now we have 0.
Okay, we don't have to have 3.
We can't have fewer than 3.
Under state law.
If 3 were to apply, up to 3 could be approved. We couldn't deny based on our number. There may be other reasons to deny, but the threshold of 3 would be what we would have established as the minimum number, which is dictated by the state. If no one applies, we may never have any. Although we have had some discussions with some proponents, so the town may very well see some retail establishments at some time in the future.
Is there anyone else? Lynn Ryan.
The article in the book says 2. Do we need an amendment?
I commented a minute ago that the 2 is what was proposed. The motion essentially has been made including an amendment based on what they found out about state law and what state law would allow. So the amendment is already included in the original motion. Anyone else? If not, find your voting device and we will start voting now on a 2/3 vote. I will close the voting now, and we'll see the result. "68 in favor, 9 opposed. That gives us the required two-thirds majority. The motion passes. Article 32, zoning bylaw change regarding residence care facility. JT?
Planning Board. I move that the town amend the zoning bylaw, section 320, table of principal use regulations, by deleting the current table entry for residential care facilities not more than 6 patients, and replacing it with the following. So zones RA, MD, CB, C, and LB become SR, and zones LI and ACR.
Thank you. The motion is in the form as shown on your motion sheet. Jay, you want to speak to it?
Yes. The Berlin Planning Board held a public hearing on April 13th, 2021 to consider comments concerning Article 32 on the annual town meeting warrant to be held on May 15th, 2021 at the Planning Board meeting held on Tuesday, April 27th, 21. The Planning Board voted 4 in favor, 0 opposed to Article 32. So just to interpret the letters for you, we have 7 zones in town. That's kind of what the Planning Board works with, is getting the right thing, the right uses for the right zones. And in your there's a zoning bylaw, and the last page of that has a map, and you can see where each zone is in town. So this change there's 2 parts of it. One is to allow small residential care facilities in a limited business district, which is currently not allowed. It will be allowed, but with special permit and site plan review by the planning board. The other change is in the RA, most of the town is residential agricultural zone, and that's going to go from allowed with special permit to allowed with special permit plus site plan review. And the same true is MD, multiple dwellings, which we don't have any zones in.
You have the planning board report. You need to file that with the town clerk. You read that already, right? Yep. Anything else to be said on this motion in regard to zoning bylaw, the various different, it's what we allow in the various different zones under the zoning bylaw. Does anyone require additional explanation? If not, this is again a 2/3 vote required, and I will ask you to vote electronically. Find your device and begin voting now. We will close voting now and get our results. We have 70 yes and 6 no, and that has the required 2/3 vote, so the motion is approved. that completes the articles that we were planning for today. We have additional articles we'll be doing on Monday night, Articles 33 through 38. And then, of course, on the 24th, we have our annual town election under Article 39. Is there a motion? Christine McKee for the selectmen.
I move to adjourn this meeting until Monday, May 17th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. at the Berlin Memorial School.
Motion is made and second to adjourn this meeting. The motion is non-debatable. The biggest thing I want to say before we vote on that motion is make sure these go in the buckets before you leave. They cost us a lot of money if we have to replace them. And I would also ask that people mask up before they leave, if their masks are off at this time, so that going through the lines things will work faster. All those in favor of adjourning as moved, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Motion is unanimous. Thank you all very much. Great afternoon.
There's a bit of a delay. Yeah, so this is the switcher. This is the switcher right here, and this is the software controlling this switcher.
Connects into the switcher, and you're just showing when it.
Let me just mute it.